My sister stood up in court and screamed, "She is just a broke old veteran who slept in her truck." The words hit the room like a slap. Every head turned toward me. Polished shoes, cold benches, perfect suits. And me, a 64-year-old retired Army nurse with silver hair, a worn service pin, and a folder sitting quietly in my lap. Coralie, my own sister, pointed at me like I was dirt she had dragged in from the street. I did not cry. I did not shout back. I only stood up, walked to the judge's bench, and placed one sealed file in front of him. He opened it, read the first page, then his face changed. He looked at the bailiff and said, "Lock the doors. No one leaves this courtroom." That was the moment my family finally understood something. They had not stolen from a weak woman. They had stolen from the wrong woman. Before I tell you how that courtroom went silent, hit like, and tell me in the comments where you are listening from tonight. And tell me this. Have you ever had your own family try to make you look crazy just to hide what they did? 3 months before that day, I arrived at 318 Alderbridge Road with one suitcase, one cane, and 28 years of service folded inside a brown envelope. That house had belonged to my grandfather, Silas Rusk. He raised me there after my mother died. He taught me how to plant tomatoes, how to read people's eyes, and how to never sign anything without reading the bottom line twice. The porch used to smell like cedar and lemon polish, but when I stepped out of the cab, the porch was empty, the curtains were gone, and a bright red "For Sale" sign stood in the yard like a warning. A new keypad hung on the gate. New cameras watched from the corners. I pressed the call button, and my sister's voice came through the speaker, smooth and cold. "Maeve, you need to leave." I said, "Coralie, open the gate. I came to see Dad and check on Grandpa's house." She laughed softly, the kind of laugh people use when they already think they won. "This is not Grandpa's house anymore, and it is not yours." I felt the first crack open inside my chest. "What are you talking about?" I asked. "Grandpa left this place to me." Coralie paused, then said the line that changed my life. "You were gone too long. Nobody waits forever for a soldier who forgot her family." 10 minutes later, a police cruiser rolled to the curb. My father, Benton Rusk, did not come outside. My sister did. She handed the officer a folder through the gate like she had practiced the moment in a mirror. The officer looked at the papers, then looked at me with tired eyes. "Ma'am, the deed shows the property belongs to Coralie Kells and Hollow Bay Assets." I said, "That is impossible." The younger officer glanced at my cane, then at my old army jacket, and his expression softened. "Are you Major Rusk?" he asked. I nodded. His voice dropped. "I am sorry, ma'am, but legally you cannot stay here tonight." The gate clicked shut between me and the only home I had left. I stood on the sidewalk where Grandpa once taught me how to fix a bike chain, and for a moment, I felt smaller than I had ever felt in any field hospital, any storm, any war zone. That night, I slept in my old truck behind a closed diner, wrapped in a blanket that smelled like dust and rain. I stared at my phone and waited for one message from my father. None came. If this kind of family silence feels familiar, write truth in the comments, because sometimes silence is not peace. Sometimes silence is the cover they throw over a crime. The next morning, I called Adele Harrow, an attorney I had known from a veterans legal clinic years earlier. Adele did not waste time with soft words. She met me at a small cafe near the courthouse, opened her laptop, and turned the screen toward me. "Maeve," she said, "your signature appears on a transfer deed dated last February." I leaned closer. My name was there in black ink. Maeve Rusk. Clean. Smooth. Too smooth. I knew my own hand. Mine shook slightly from nerve damage in my right wrist. That signature looked like it had been printed by a machine. Adele tapped the notary seal. The notary was suspended 6 months before this was signed, and Hollow Bay Assets is connected to your brother-in-law, Tobin Kells, my sister's husband, the man who smiled at Thanksgiving and called me our hero, while apparently moving my grandfather's house through a shell company. Adele kept going. Your father approved 2 payments from the estate account, one for $92,000, one for $118,000, both labeled home repair and elder care. I almost laughed because it was too ugly to cry over. Grandpa had died with chipped paint on the porch and a broken heater in the back room. They had not repaired anything. They had only repaired their own bank accounts. That night I went through every box I had left. Old uniforms, medical notebooks, discharge papers, birthday cards from Grandpa written in large crooked letters. At the bottom of a tin box I found his bronze service medal wrapped in a handkerchief. Behind the ribbon was a tiny brass key taped flat against the metal. My breath stopped. Grandpa had always loved hiding important things in plain sight. The key led me to a safe deposit box at a small credit union outside town. Inside was a blue envelope, 1 flash drive, and a letter in Grandpa's handwriting. Maeve, it said, if you are reading this, someone tried to turn blood into paperwork. Remember what I told you? Every lie leaves a footprint. I sat right there in the bank room and cried for the first time. Not loudly, not weakly, just enough to let the pain leave my body before it turned into poison. The flash drive held a video of Grandpa, filmed 2 weeks before he died. His voice was thin, but his mind was clear. I leave Alderbridge Road to my granddaughter Maeve Rusk. She never abandoned me. She served. There is a difference. Then he looked straight into the camera and said, if Benton or Coralie says otherwise, they are lying. Adele brought in a retired fraud analyst named Nolan Quaid, a quiet man with thick glasses and the patience of a hunter. Nolan traced the documents, bank transfers, emails, login records, and one thing that made my stomach turn cold. Someone had used my old military ID number to create a mental fitness statement claiming I was unstable and unreachable. That paper made the forged sale easier. That paper made me look like a wandering old woman who could not manage a property. My own family had not only stolen the house, they had tried to steal my name, my service, and my mind. Then a second twist appeared. My father had signed a private buyer agreement to sell the house for $740,000, but the listing price was only $515,000. The difference was going into a side account under Tobin's company. Greed had made them bold. Bold people make mistakes. Nolan found a deleted email from Coralie to Tobin that said, once Maeve is embarrassed enough, she will disappear again. I printed that line and stared at it for a long time. They knew shame could be a weapon. They just forgot I had survived weapons before. When the case reached court, Coralie came dressed like a church charity chairwoman, pearls at her throat, soft pink lipstick, hands folded like she had never touched a lie in her life. Tobin sat beside her in a gray suit, smiling at his phone. My father sat behind them, still proud, still hard, still refusing to look at me. Their lawyer painted me as bitter, lonely, damaged by war, and angry because life had passed me by. He said I had no stable home. He said I had no family support. He said my memory could not be trusted. Every sentence was designed to shrink me in front of strangers. Then Coralie stood up and gave them the headline she thought would finish me. She is just a broke old veteran, she shouted. She slept in her truck outside a diner. She wants this house because she has nothing else. The courtroom gasped. The judge slammed his gavel, but I did not move. I let her words hang there. Ugly words deserve witnesses. Then I rose. My knees ached. My hand shook, but my voice did not. Your Honor, I said. May I approach? The judge nodded. I walked forward and placed the blue file on his bench. Inside was Grandpa's video statement, the original deed, the suspended notary record, the forged mental fitness paper, the side account transfers, and Coralie's deleted email. The judge read the first page, then the second. Then he looked up slowly, and the whole room seemed to hold its breath. "Bailiff," he said, "lock the doors. No one leaves this courtroom until I understand why a veteran's federal identification number appears in a forged property transfer." Tobin's smile vanished. Coralie's mouth opened, but nothing came out. My father finally looked at me, and for the first time in my life, I saw fear in his eyes. Adele stood beside me and said, "Your Honor, we are prepared to submit evidence of forgery, identity misuse, financial fraud, and elder estate coercion." The judge's voice turned sharp. "Mr. Rusk, did you authorize these documents?" My father swallowed. "This should have stayed inside the family," he said. I looked straight at him and answered, "Family does not need locked doors unless someone stole something." The room broke after that. Tobin tried to blame Coralie. Coralie tried to blame Dad. Dad tried to say Grandpa was confused. Then Adele played the video. Grandpa's face appeared on the courtroom screen, pale but clear-eyed. "Maeve never left us," he said. "She served this country, and she came back every time she could. Do not let them punish her for wearing a uniform." My sister started crying then, but her tears came too late. The judge ordered emergency restoration of the estate title, froze the Hollow Bay accounts, and referred the case for criminal charges. Later, Coralie received 5 years for forgery and obstruction. Tobin received 9 years for fraud and identity misuse. My father received 7 years for conspiracy and elder estate manipulation. When the bailiff placed cuffs on him, he whispered, "You destroyed your family." I shook my head. "No," I said. "I only opened the window. The rot was already there." 2 weeks later, I returned to 318 Alderbridge Road. The red sign was gone. The gate was open. The porch still needed paint. The tomatoes were dead. But the old wind chime Grandpa loved still hung near the door, moving softly in the afternoon air. I walked through each room without touching much. I thought I would feel victory. I thought I would feel joy. Instead, I felt grief, clean and heavy. Because justice gives you the truth, but it does not give back the years people stole. I found Grandpa's old chair by the window and sat there until sunset. Then I made my decision. I sold nothing to developers. I turned the house into a small recovery home for older veterans and widows who had nowhere safe to go after life betrayed them. The first woman who moved in was 71. She stood in the doorway holding 2 plastic bags and whispered, "Is this really for people like me?" I smiled and said, "Especially for people like you." People still ask me if I regret taking my own family to court. I tell them no. Regret belongs to the person who lies, not the person who finally tells the truth. My sister called me a homeless veteran because she thought homelessness was the worst thing a person could be. She was wrong. The worst thing is living inside a stolen house and still being empty. I was never truly homeless. I was only locked out of a place my grandfather had already given me, and that is different. Home is not just wood, doors, and a name on a deed. Home is the truth you refuse to bury. So if someone listening tonight has been told to stay quiet, to let it go, to protect the family name, remember this. Silence does not protect the innocent. Silence protects the guilty. Shine light where they told you not to look. They thought they took my house, but all they really did was hand me the one file that locked the courtroom. Commentary, discussion, explanation, and lessons. Now let's slow down for a moment and look at what this story was really saying. On the surface, this was a story about a veteran, a house, a forged deed, and a courtroom. But deep inside, it was about something much more painful. It was about what happens when the people who should protect you become the people who try to erase you. Maeve was not just fighting for a building, she was fighting for her name, her dignity, her service, and the truth her family tried to bury. The most powerful part of this story is the way the insult happens in public. Coralie does not just disagree with her sister. She attacks her in front of everyone. She calls her a broke old veteran. She tries to make Maeve look weak, unstable, and unwanted. And that is important, because sometimes cruel people do not only steal money or property, they also try to steal the way other people see you. They want the room to look at you with doubt. They want your pain to become entertainment. They want your silence to become their safety. But Maeve's strength is different. She does not answer insult with insult. She does not scream back. She does not beg the courtroom to believe her. She simply brings proof. That is where the story becomes strong. Her revenge is not wild. It is quiet. It is controlled. It is legal. She lets the documents speak. She lets the video speak. She lets the truth walk into the room and lock the doors. And that is a deep lesson for real life. When people lie about you, your first reaction may be anger. You may want to defend yourself loudly. You may want to explain everything again and again. But sometimes, the strongest answer is preparation. Save the messages. Keep the papers. Remember the dates. Notice the small details. Lies often look powerful at first, but most lies are lazy. They leave marks. They leave mistakes. They leave one small open door for the truth to enter. Maeve's family made one huge mistake. They thought her kindness was weakness. They thought her age made her easy to push aside. They thought her years of service had made her tired. But they forgot that a person who has survived real storms does not break easily. Older people especially will understand this part. After a certain age, you do not need to prove yourself to every loud person in the room. You have already lived enough life to know that calm can be stronger than noise. The house in this story also has a deeper meaning. It is not just wood, walls, and a porch. It represents memory. It represents family history. It represents the promise of a grandfather who truly saw Maeve. When her family tried to take that house, they were not only taking property, they were trying to cut her out of the family story. That is why the betrayal hurts so much. Money can be replaced sometimes, but being erased by your own blood leaves a different kind of wound. Another strong point is the father's line. This should have stayed inside the family. That line is important because many people use family as a cover for wrongdoing. They say, "Don't make a scene." They say, "Keep it private." They say, "Think about the family name." But the real question is this: why should the victim protect the image of the people who hurt them? Family privacy should never become a hiding place for fraud, abuse, or cruelty. Love does not ask you to stay quiet while someone destroys your life. The courtroom scene gives us the main message. Truth does not always arrive early, but when it arrives with proof, it changes everything. One file turns shame into strength. One document turns insult into evidence. One recorded statement brings a dead grandfather's voice back into the room. That is why this story feels emotional. Maeve is not alone in the end. Her grandfather's truth stands with her. Her own discipline stands with her. Her service stands with her. And the ending is not just revenge, it is healing. Maeve could have kept the house only for herself. After everything she suffered, nobody would blame her. But she turns it into a safe place for older veterans and widows. That choice shows us that real justice is not only about punishment. Real justice can also create protection for someone else. Pain becomes purpose. Betrayal becomes shelter. A stolen home becomes a new beginning for people who need one. So what do we learn from this story? First, never let someone's insult define you. Coralie called Maeve homeless, but Maeve knew who she was. Second, truth needs courage, but it also needs evidence. Feelings matter, but proof can open doors feelings cannot. Third, family is not proven by blood. Family is proven by honesty, loyalty, and respect. Fourth, silence is not always peace. Sometimes silence only protects the guilty. And finally, the best revenge is not always shouting. Sometimes the best revenge is standing calmly in the room while the truth destroys every lie built against you. This story reminds us that dignity can survive humiliation. It reminds us that older people are not weak just because they are tired. It reminds us that service, sacrifice, and loyalty should never be used against someone. And most of all, it tells us this: when people try to erase you, do not disappear. Shine light where they told you not to look.